Very warm welcome at this event called Shifting the Colonial Gaze, discussions on the permanence of design. My name is Saskia van Stein. I have a bit of an echo, so I'll try to speak very slow and clear. I am director of the International Architecture Biennial of Rotterdam. I'm also the headmaster of the Critical Inquiry Lab, though with a short sabbatical. Hello. And here only to moderate and facilitate the conversation that I'm very much looking forward to. We have three speakers. Before I introduce them and what we'll actually talk about, it might be good to sort of, as we're such a small group, I really would like to engage with all of you. So feel free to raise your hand, or we're going to make it quite informal. But this evening we will in fact look at what we can learn with and from designers from what we'll now call the Middle East, since we also have somebody here from German, Iranian diaspora. But of course the Lebanese root and link is very prevalent. We have framed the event through storytelling, but we'll also look into shared but also conflicting histories, and hopefully sharing some stories of things we have in common, or could have in common, and what we can learn from each other. This event is a project and a collaboration between Gothe Institut Libanon and Gothe Institut London, which Amsterdam, sorry. I woke up at 3 and I decided not to say that out loud. Thank you for correcting me, Imke Grimmer. I think this is the moment that you then also step forward, because the project sprouts from a collaboration of a project 4200 and FANTASMEEM, and here from the Goethe Institut Amsterdam. Sorry, you are from the Goethe Institute in Lebanon, in order to tell us something about the FANTASMEEM. Please step forward. It's a very strong echo. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Saskia. Thanks a lot. Whoops. A very warm welcome on behalf of the Goethe Institute in general and Goethe Institut Libanon especially. My name is Imke. I'm heading the project FANTASMEEM. FANTASMEEM is a project being implemented in cooperation with our partners from GIZ, who are also here tonight. Since 4 years, FANTASMEEM means fun in Arabic, means the art, and tasmeem is design, so the art of design. We do promote designers in Lebanon, upcoming designers, also established designers, to get more visibility. We give them trainings, incubators, grants, networking, visibility, and being here at Dutch Design Week for the first time as a collective Lebanese design exhibition is really, really a big thing for us, and especially for the designers who are here, and I'm also thankful for some of them being here tonight, who are exhibited at Megawatt at Dutch Design Week. I wanted also to mention that this project FANTASMEEM is part of a bigger initiative being implemented and financed especially by the Federal German Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development. So also I want to thank the ministry for this. And I think it's really a very crucial moment for us to be able to give visibility for Lebanese designers abroad. And I want to thank especially Jana Aridi, who is here also on the stage tonight. Jana is part of FANTASMEEM since the early beginning of the project. She's a Lebanese designer living here in the Netherlands now, and she built the bridge between the Netherlands and Dutch Design Week and Lebanon, and this is something I think very important. There's so much potential in terms of building bridges and connections in these very, very difficult times for Lebanon. So I'm wishing us a very fruitful and interesting discussion and night, and thanks for all of you for coming.
Thank you. Before you run off, may I ask you one question? Because you say it's an important moment in time. Can you tell why? And maybe one very realistic or practical proposal that stems from FANTASMEEM that inspires us or could inspire us.
I mean, the designers themselves should tell us about it. I don't want to say it, but in these specific times of crisis in Lebanon, I don't know how much you are aware about it since many years now, but especially the last 3-4 years, the high inflation and political, economic, social crisis, ecological crisis as well. Like being a designer or creative in general in Lebanon is such a huge challenge in order, like when it comes to resources, when it comes to infrastructure, like how to get things exported, imported, how to get access to material, how to get access to money, because currently the banks are closed. So we have very weird, many layers of difficulties and challenges. And I have high respect for all those who are struggling and who are very talented and who do have this amazing potential, but we just need to try to, and this is what we do as FANTASMEEM, try to promote and to sustain in order to leverage what is there, because there's so much. Yeah.
Okay, we'll keep it at that, because I think that's already quite a challenging context. Thank you, Inke. As mentioned, we will look at the powerful tools that designers have and their long-standing tradition in fact, shaping and shaking up power systems. So that's something that we will be speaking about. I hope to look a bit to the current condition through looking back and then looking forward and weaving together potential moments of learning. And as said, sort of global storytelling and what in fact does that mean in the contemporary, what is then the local, will be something that we'll be touching on. And well, I hope to uncover a little bit on the, let's say, personal, geographic and social and political backgrounds that determine, in fact, the opportunities we even have or not, or are even denied of. Luckily, I'm not here to do that on my own. We have 3 shorter presentations of about 10 minutes, and through those 3 presentations we'll start drawing lines and questions, and I hope to sort of, in about 3/4 of an hour, finish up with a drink at the bar. And I think without further ado, I will introduce everybody more specifically later on, but the 3 conversations will be held by Siba Sahabi, by Rawad, Baaklini, especially when I'm tired, but Jana, Aridi has already been mentioned as a powerful force behind all of this. So, Siba is a German-Iranian interdisciplinary artist. In addition to objects and sculptures, she designs theater sets and installations of buildings and public spheres. Her art-winning works have been exhibited internationally in museums and galleries from Buenos Aires to London, and her work actually explores also the reconstruction and the meaning of cultural identity. She's very much interested in the relationship of, let's say, the things around us and how they inform and shape our us as individuals and as communities. So how does this shaping of the cultural heritage change when we are exposed to multiple cultures? So I think something that we will touch upon later, but I also saw on your website, which was not on the bio, that you've recently started a foundation, and I thought later on I'd love to speak about maybe networks of support and solidarity, but without further ado, please give it up for Siba.
Welcome. My name is Siba Sahabi, and I'm very happy to be here. It's a nice bridge because, as mentioned, I'm German-Iranian, so the Goethe Institut is also close to me, and I have a lot of Lebanese friends, so that's really nice to be part of this group tonight. I'm going to give an introduction to 3 projects of mine. As said, I work very wide. I make objects, but also installations. but the 3 projects I'm going to talk tonight about are basically based on objects. So I start with Between Two Rivers. And as you can see here, I'm building up a vase, and I'm using the potter's wheel. And the potter's wheel is an invention that comes from the region that's now Iraq, and it's a very important tool for potters makers, because within very little time, with this invention of the potter's wheel, they could build up perfectly round objects. And the invention of the potter's wheel, it was then introduced to Greece, and then a new style of pottery making was developed. And my vases are an interpretation of this style, which is called minyam ware. And as you can see, I didn't use ceramics. I translated the vases into felt. So I used felt, and I spread it from 2 sides, so each vase has 3 colors from the surface, the inside and the outside. I have a couple of pictures. Yes. Yes, and as you can see, yeah, storytelling through photography is also a big part of my work. I move on to the next project I would like to introduce you to. It's called Perspectives. It's a series of 5 wall lamps. They're made out of a wooden frame, and you can see like these black layers. And then each lamp has a metal triangle in the middle. And behind each of these wooden layers, there are 8 LEDs that can be turned on and off, and by doing so, they create shadow patterns. And with this work, I'm reflecting on the art history of Europe and the art history of the Middle East. Both of them have had a different development, and that's based on different beliefs and knowledge, and also, religion. In Europe and the Renaissance, the central perspective was developed, which had an enormous influence on how we see art, and the human was placed in the center, and the artist represented the world on a 2D canvas, how the humans would see the world in 3D. What is interesting about it is that the artists were not able to construct the central perspective without knowledge that came from the Middle East. There was a scientist called Al-Hazen. He lived in Egypt, in Cairo, about 1,000 years ago, and he was the first one who understood completely how the eye works. So basically that our eye works like a camera obscura. The Italians did an amazing job, but included knowledge from the Middle East. On the other side, in the Middle East, portraits don't have the same, let's say, position as they have in the European art history, because of, in respect to Allah, you would not represent humans or animals, but of course there are exceptions. It's not that black and white. But in general, you don't see so many humans, but instead in the Middle East, geometric patterns are very important. They have a very important position in the arts, next to, for example, also calligraphy. And what is important about these patterns is that in the Middle East, like the repetitive patterns were not invented, but they were based, among others, on patterns that were invented before in Greece. But what happened in the Middle East is that Middle Eastern artists developed this pattern making to a tremendous high level. And with this work, with my work, with this project, I wanted to show how the Middle East and Europe have influenced each other. Sometimes we forget. What I did in this work, I made the indication of the central perspective with this system, which is also very often used in theaters, and I gave space in the middle for geometric patterns. There's some more images, yes. And this is an overview of the 5 objects. And they were shown in Milan, and they were also shown in Dubai in several exhibitions. I go to the last project I'm going to introduce you to tonight. It's an audiovisual installation. It's called Nufar, and it's inspired by the oldest song of the world. It's called the oldest song because it's the oldest documented song. And it's also, it was found in the Middle East. The SilSal project is about music notations. It's a very complex act to translate music into graphical notation systems. The older systems were based on language, because in language you have a timeline, and also in music you have a timeline. If you translate music into graphical expressions, you need to represent different aspects, and the most important are the height of a tone, like if it's high or low, the length and the intensity. So I did a lot of research, and I could talk half an hour just about this project, but I keep it short. There are different musical notation systems, and my project was based on 3 of them. The oldest one from the Middle East, and the next one is the most commonly used, which was invented in Italy with the lines and the dots. And the last one is an invention from a Dutch inventor, and he thought that the Italian system was very complicated, and he used lines. So if a tone is really long, you see a long line. If it's short, it's a shorter one. And then the high pitches are on the right side, and the low pitches are on the left side. So this is the one. I showed this installation. What you would hear is a composition that was inspired by the oldest song of the world, and then you saw 3 machines, and each machine reacted on a different layer of the music. And so this is one machine. This is the second one, which is inspired by the Italian system having lines and dots. And the last one, it was a circle on the ground, and it would show the length of the tones, this would visualize the main melody. All right, and last but not least, this is an invitation. If you're in the Netherlands in March or in May, I have a foundation, and I set up a dance project. We worked with a Spanish flamenco dancer who just won the National Spanish Dance Prize, so he's very good. He's called Andrés Marín. And we launched our project. We had the premiere in the International Theatre of Amsterdam, and we're going to show the project again in Heerlen and Maastricht. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Siba. The second who will present is Rawad Baaklini. He's a Lebanese curator, designer based in Rotterdam. He has worked with various curators and institutions, such as the Science Gallery Network, Noorderlichtfoto in Groningen, and MIT Museum in Boston. He's also taught audiovisual media at Willem de Kooning Academy in Rotterdam, and currently is advisor and mentor for theses at the Rietveld Academy in Amsterdam. His personal practice explores the points of contact between the complex concepts of design theory and the concrete reality of everyday life, with in particular interest in film, media, and performance. Rawad, I don't know where you are. You are here. Please, the mic is yours.
Well, I'm really bad with microphones, so I will sit down. I hope this is okay. Okay. So today I decided to not present my work, but rather kind of present a certain idea of what now people are starting to call Lebanese design. And to start with this, first, I'm not an expert. So I'm not an expert on Lebanese design. The selection of objects that you're going to see are selected randomly because I just remembered them, or also like because I like them. But yeah, no offense to anyone that I kind of did not put in this presentation. There's a lot of Lebanese designers, so I couldn't include them. Wait, let me just check my notes. Yeah. So basically, because it's the first time I'm asked to come to a panel and discuss something under the title of shifting a colonial gaze. So I a bit panicked in a sense of like, I was running away from these big words and I don't want to put myself in them, but yeah, I guess it's time to just face where I'm from, let's say. So yeah, that's why I kind of started with the idea of like asking myself, what can I give to the audience, and like what can I present to them in order for us to kind of have a fruitful discussion. So I'm going to start with the presentation. This is a work by a Lebanese designer, obviously, called Nada Dibis. Nada Dibis is how I like to kind of call her the mother of design, of product design in Lebanon. She was really the first person that kind of created a brand and a shop in Lebanon, in Beirut, that yeah, like put product design in the center, and also as something that is a commodity that is sold, that is also, of course, in parallel to that, the sumptuous elements and luxurious elements of it and of the discipline. So this is a clock that she made. She got famous because of this arabesque that Siba also referred to in her work. And in it, there's Mother of Pearl, where she works with a lot of craftsmen in Lebanon and in Egypt to kind of like have this intricate finish. Next slide, please. This is also her work. So you see there's a certain language to her work. Next slide, please. Aesthetical language. This is kind of the details. So the pieces of wood are carved, and then each piece has like a specific mother of pearl piece that is cut to a specific, to the millimeter, and then put in them. Next slide, please. This was my teacher at l'Académie Libanaise des Beaux-Arts, the Lebanese Academy of Fine Arts. And his name is Marc Baroud. He's also one of like the most famous designers of today, and Lebanese designers. Basically, this piece is he collaborated with a leather company that has these kind of leftover pieces of leather, and he created this chair with the idea of like usually wood is the structure that holds the leather. Next slide, please. And in this, he used the wood, they used the leather to become the structure that holds the wood. So it's kind of inverted. You can see also there's a thread of craftsmanship that is kind of starting to arise from these two objects. Next slide, please. This is, okay, so also Lebanese designer, I'm repeating myself. His name is Carlo Masoud. And these dolls are called, wait, let me see. So Yara, Maya, Zena, and Rasha. Obviously, they resemble the niqab. And the niqab as a piece of clothing is used to hide the woman's body, to keep her safe, let's say, in some cultures. And so he took this idea and created these objects that you can actually just remove and hide something inside them, which kind of the same resembles the aspect of the clothing. Next slide, please. This is them in brass. If someone would write a thesis on Lebanese design, there's a chapter that is called Brass in Lebanese Design, or Marble in Lebanese Design. So next slide, please. This is Marc Dibe. Marc Dibe is a great storyteller. And in this piece, basically he has like a whole exhibition with these pieces and other pieces as well. And each piece in the exhibition represents one story that happened in his life. These series, specifically one time he was visiting his mom and he broke a mirror. and it was his mom's favorite mirror. And so it was on the floor, and he watched his face shattered in this kind of special piece that his mom really valued. And so he took this moment and turned it into these series of mirrors, where actually when you look at them, either you're distorted or you don't even see yourself. Which kind of interesting take on the story. Next slide, please. Same thing. This is one of my favorite ceramists. Her name is Nathalie Khayat. In 2012, I'm sure we're gonna start talking about this later. There's a foundation called House of Today that helps emerging Lebanese designers. They do a biennale, and they kind of have a certain theme, and then they invite Lebanese designers to work on this theme. In 2012, the second biennale, the theme was secrets. And Nathalie Khayat is a ceramist, and these maybe to you look like normal porcelain cups. But the thing is, inside them, there's a small phrase written so subtly in the white edge of the cup that only when you drink coffee and the rest of the coffee stays where you can read the phrase. Next slide, please. So this is with the light, and there was stuff written like, I miss him like hell, or I don't know how to break up with him, and really kind of witty sentences that are secrets kept in this cup. Next slide, please. Okay, so these are, what I presented now were Lebanese designers that I grew up knowing, and when I was in architecture school, I kind of started to familiarize myself with their work. However, for me back then, it was not Lebanese design, it was just design. It was just product design. The word Lebanese was not attached to them. And so I came to the Design Academy. I did a master's in contextual design. I graduated in 2019. And I graduated with 3 amazing designers. 2 of them graduated the year before me, and this designer graduated the same year as me. And I wanted to present their work because they're also Lebanese. And I wanted to kind of present a work of someone that has the same background as me, but also came and did the same education and as me here in the Netherlands, and to see kind of, what each of them made or came up with. I don't know if you recognize a second-hand shop, people who live in Eindhoven. I remember I used to go to it to have inspiration. Basically, these are chairs that are, Saskia, what were they called, these chairs? You said the name of them before, or no? You forgot, it's okay. No, the name of the shop, oh, okay, I thought they had the name for the design. But basically, these are kind of famous Dutch chairs in terms of design, traditional Dutch chairs, let's say. And Micheline Nahra, which is a great friend of mine, who actually we collaborated on doing the exhibition design in the exhibition we did with Jana and Goethe in Piet en Eyck. She graduated with this project where she took these 4 chairs, this set of dinner table, let's say, with 4 chairs, and there was a table behind them or in front of them, I don't remember. And next slide, please. And so she deconstructed them. Next slide, please. And created from a series of 4 chairs and 1 table, a dinner for 1. And Micheline comes from the south of Lebanon. The south of Lebanon has a big history. Sorry, tell me if I'm going over time. I don't know, has a big history of war and for lack of a better word, struggle with our neighbor, Israel. And so in 2006, there was the war of 2006, where Israel invaded the south, and Micheline used to live in the south, and she lost family there. And so basically, it's kind of a reflection on this idea of just sitting with someone on a table and losing them at any minute, in any moment, and having to always kind of construct and reconstruct your surroundings in a place that is always being deconstructed. So this is the work that came out with. So what is, like, Micheline did not do, of course you can see a bit in the chair, there's a bit of, let's say, Orientalist aesthetics. She did not do it on purpose. It was actually, you know, when you're very much in your project and you stop seeing things, actually when she presented it, people started telling her, oh, but now you made it look Oriental. And she did not even think about it when she was doing it, which I find it like, yeah, quite interesting. Yeah, this is a project from Hala Tawil. Wait, what's it called? Gradual Unease, I think. Basically, Hala, she looked at food in cartoons. So let's take, for example, Tom and Jerry, how the meat in Tom and Jerry never sweats, how the cake, the icing of the cake never melts, and how, and because of like these imagery of food, there's something also sexual about them, even in a Tom and Jerry or Walt Disney film. And so with this idea, she put like a comparison between two kind of dire needs, which is hunger and horniness. And yeah, she made this project that kind of, yeah, wait, I'm gonna look at my notes not to fuck this up. Yeah, so like there's a nature of desire that is drawn in the food and cartoons that also kind of reflects a bit our desire to collect design objects, in a sense. So she made this kind of piece that is, we're not sure what it is, we're not sure of its function, but it is there. It's kind of static, but still dripping, to kind of showcase these two worlds together. Next slide, please. More details of the project. 2015, Beirut, the trash crisis. Basically, yeah, Beirut was filled with trash. I will not go into details. These images circulated a lot on the internet. And so basically, Elisa Asaf, who had the residency at EKVC, the ceramic residency, took these images because of their like high circulation, extruded them in 3D and created 3D milled plaster molds, and she casted ceramic in them. Next slide, please, and then the next one. Yeah. And so these images of trash that were circulating over and over again, also because they were circulating, they started to decay. The image itself started to decay. And she wanted to kind of a bit represent that. And she created these kind of architectonics objects that are used to be interventions in facades of buildings, to kind of elevate from this, yeah, kind of trash aesthetics and put it out of context in different places. Next slide, please. Okay, so basically, while I was like putting these projects, I thought like, but what is Lebanese design? Each project is so different. Of course, we can find the red thread, but we can find the red thread with anything. And I decided to just Google Lebanese design. This is the first page that came up. And we can see, because for me, when I think Lebanese design, I think of this. I don't think of anything I've shown you before. And I will explain why at the end of my presentation. So basically the first slide, next slide please, is this kind of terrazzo with this specific company called Blotchaya. They've been doing it for like decades. It's everywhere in the houses. You can see also on this picture, it's on the floor. It's very, very typical in interior Lebanese houses. Next slide please. The second one is these 3 windows that have arches. That are also very typical of Lebanese architecture. Next slide, please. And this is like an example of a house that has 3 arches. Next slide, please. This is kind of, the bigger picture. Basically, this is, I don't know if I can generalize like this, but a dream of any Lebanese, can I say, designer or artist to have a house like this. Especially like with these traditional windows and traditional high ceilings, and also to have this kind of, it depends on the taste. The person had obviously an eclectic taste, which is nice, but and so, when I think of Lebanese design, I think of this. And I think of these arches, I think of terrazzo, I think of these buildings. That's the only thing I can really kind of define this term Lebanese design. And so it brings me to kind of a reflection that I had, which I hope I will not offend anyone by it. There's no such thing as Lebanese design. There are Lebanese designers in a sense of, if you think, I'm going to give an example which was going to contradict what I wanted to say, but if you think of Scandinavian design, you think immediately of a certain language. You think of a light wood or like a chalet somewhere, or like, and when you think of Lebanese design, I don't think of one thing. I think of all these objects that I cannot group except if I put the word Lebanese next to them. And maybe it's not very interesting to do that, let's say. And then next slide, please. This is the last slide. This is the studio of Nada Dibis, who is the designer that I started with. And I thought it was funny that when I Googled Lebanese design, this is like the 4th or 5th picture. Takes me back to the start of my presentation. I think that's it. Thank you for listening. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Rod. Very provocative presentation, and thank you for sharing some of your favorite designers, and oh yes, they're also Lebanese. She was already mentioned earlier this afternoon. Jana Aridi is the Hague-based designer, and her sensitive and culturally relevant work is based on an embodied sensory. I'm hoping to actually talk about that embodied experience a little later, also as a way of knowing. And with that, and let's say a certain materiality and representation and reflection of nature in its multiple properties gets explored. In 2021, she founded Project 4200, a cross-continental design agency, and its aim is to create and connect between different design practices and styles across cultures and to promote design products from all over the world. In 2019, she has been working with the Gothe Institut in Lebanon on curating events and workshops on design, and most recently on implementing a support structure for design scene in Lebanon, which I'm really looking forward to hear more about. And with her work, she also bridges work in Lebanon and the project 4200, which is the kilometers between, I was happy that I read it somewhere, between here and Lebanon. As she has organized the first exhibition on Lebanese designers in the Netherlands, currently on display. So congratulations with that, and the floor is yours. Please give it up for Jana.
Okay, so I had very little time to prepare, so I'm really sorry if there was anything, mixing up. So initially I'm an architect. I actually graduated with Micheline, who Rawad just mentioned, and Hala was with us as well in AB. So it's very nice to see them flourishing in that way, in their own special way as well. As I said, I graduated as an architect, but I did not work as an architect. The long hours behind the computer were not very amusing for me. So I went on to do a master's in product design at Domus Academy in 2017. And in 2018, when I came back to Lebanon, I found my first opportunity with House of Today, which Rawad also just mentioned, through Ingrid, my first baby. In all my work, I try to really find a solid ground to stand on, usually inspired by either personal experiences I've heard of from my friends, from things I've seen. I'm very observant around the world around me, and that is what I feel like I always put into my art or design. I still didn't label myself, actually. So Ingrid is my first piece. Next slide, please. It was a side table. That was the theme of the exhibition. I created a side table inspired by human emotions. So that is what I always try to do. I either connect it to nature or human emotions, and when it's the best, I do both at the same time. It was inspired with when you feel like you've been doing the most of that you can, and then try to patch yourself up and present yourself perfectly to the world again. So I kind of took it in a way that mirrors some of the crafts that we have in Lebanon. So rattan is used a lot. We've seen it a lot in our parents' houses, in our grandparents' houses, and I really love the feel of this material. I think it's very, very beautiful. So what I did was created this perfectly symmetrical shape that is cut in the middle by a very non-symmetrical curve that is patched using rattan. And I was very interested in the way that the production of this piece was super hard to do, because it was basically made with CNC cut pieces. It's completely empty from the inside, so when you look from one side, you can see the other side, and it's very light, so that makes it even more helpful to move around. And yeah, it was veneered with oak. The next project, also one of my favorites, is something I've taught myself. I've always loved, is pretty obvious by now, I love wood as a material. I think it's very beautiful. The grains that it have are like really minimized mountains that you can see. Next slide, please. So, no, the next one, sorry. So this is what I try to see. Like, I love also playing on scale in a way. So when you look at it, you don't know basically how big it is, how big the piece is, until you actually touch it. This is my favorite piece, and I carved them myself. It's a technique that I taught myself. I just went on and bought material and just collected leftover wood from manufacturing companies I used to work with. So I went home, I cut myself a million times until I learned how to do it. And it's a craft that I'm still trying to proceed with. That collection was part of the Architectural Digest Middle East with the architect Karim Nader. Karim taught me at AUB, and he's also very sensitive in the way he approaches all his designs. So he asked me to do, like, he had seen some of my spoons, and he has asked me to do even more for his exhibition, and they were on display. As you can see, the setting, that was later on a dinner setting, so people were sitting around it, and my spoons were filled with very different spices, and like the senses were very aroused, let's say, with different smells. The oldest thing I've ever done is paint, so that was my escape, kind of. And I hadn't painted in a long time until COVID came back. So as I said, I'm very infatuated with nature. I try to always go back to it. It's kind of the escape that you get when things get a bit too much. So during COVID, where all of these pieces arose, I was trying to perfect hyperrealism. I collage pieces of pictures I've taken together, and I just paint them again and again until I get to that. So that is also a work in progress that I'm working on. Before we go to the next slide, I'm also learning, yeah, this is also something that came back in COVID. So architecture finally got back to me. So the hatching technique that I used to learn and do a lot during architecture school, I just found myself doing it randomly again and again, and I created spaces that sometimes might not make sense, but it was my way to kind of explore what was in my mind, and I couldn't really put it into words. Fascination with human anatomy is another thing that I have. So I started creating these hearts. We have a heart model at home because my dad is a teacher. So he used to have all of these models. and it was just there as well. So I started like turning it around and trying to put it in different shapes. The most interesting ones were not copied from the model, but actually stuff that I found inspiring elsewhere. Like the ghost heart. I had learned while doing this project that the ghost heart is something that actually exists. So when you're doing a transplant, it's emptied from all the blood, so the heart turns white, completely white, before it's transplanted and filled again with blood. So I felt that it was a very interesting idea to try to at least start with exploring. The next one is happened directly after the Beirut explosion. So I was very frustrated. I didn't know what to do. So I drew the heart again. And I hid Beirut in Arabic within its shading. It's very not clear, but I can maybe show it to you. So it's intentional that it's unclear, just to not make it too obvious, but it's my favorite heart. Slide. I tried also thinking of installations later on, maybe illustrating them at times. I was drawing these weird shapes that I didn't know what to do with them. So I started putting humans next to them and playing with the scale again. COVID or crawling into a cocoon. I have multiple others that are still under exploration. It brings me to last year when I first arrived to the Netherlands. My personal work is still a work in progress because I always like to, it's a never-ending process. Any designer would know that, I think. And before I pick it up again, I started Project 4200. I had newly arrived in the Netherlands last year in March. And you know, coming from all of this things that you have in the back of your mind with the design, what's happening in design and what's happening to you as a designer, and coming back here and having suddenly a peace of mind to think. So I thought, okay, I need to do something. I had been working since 2017 with FANTASMEEM. We had created several programs for designers, several visits to several visits to design factories, to the industrial city. We had done all that back in Lebanon. And I thought, what can I do now that I'm here? So I thought of Project 4200, 4200 being the distance between Amsterdam and Beirut. And initially it was a completely different, I mean not completely, but it was a different, maybe less stressful project, let's say. A smaller project, maybe just an exhibition space, a small shop for design for Lebanon that can progress later on to be more inclusive. But as I discussed it more and more with Imke and my colleagues there, and I found this amazing opportunity to be at Design Week, I was getting in touch with several partners, and whenever I spoke about what I thought Lebanese design was and what I wanted to do with it, I received a lot of support, so I thought maybe it's a good chance to do this. The point behind it being that when you come from certain parts of a turmoil, especially super recently, you are perceived a bit differently maybe. Like, I didn't want the pity to happen to the Lebanese designers because, I mean, as you've seen in Rawad's presentation, there's a lot of talent, there's a lot of effort that is being put. I mean, it's Lebanese, it's design. Basically, it's nothing different than anyone else just because you're Lebanese. So that is what I wanted to do. And the exhibitions that personally I had been used to were never as inclusive as what we've just done. Next slide, please. Here in the, sorry, this is just a last minute picture from, from Jafar. So what we try to do is gather designers who work on a high level and also who work on a, like everyday objects, let's say, and designers who are also still exploring. So designers who try to do different things at the same time and put them all in one place, because as you just saw, we don't have one language. We are really that diverse, and why not be also proud of it? So that was the approach. Coincidentally, the designer of this piece is here somewhere, right? By Christelle Karam. I was just explaining to this very fascinated guy about how she reuses foam in her work. So yeah, this is where I'm at now. This is basically a small preview.
Thank you.